Yeah. Now let's look at some date specific calculations. Probably one question was left from our earlier stuff. And let me also add which month registered highest average turnover. And just an offbeat stuff. Find the age of the person given his date of birth, because this is also more to do with the date. I thought it would be better to include it here. And a few more offbeat stuff will typically address them as and when required. Yeah. So typically, if I have to address these kind of queries where there is some kind of usage of arithmetic functions again, average, sum, right? I'm using those kind of stuff again, but along with some features relating to dates, day, month, year, weekdays, these kind of stuff. So if I have to get all those things, it's better to break the date into these four components. The whole date can be broken into day, month, year, weekday, Sunday, Monday kind of stuff. These four, if I am able to break the date, I can do all these calculations. So the it's like though in the data we'll get only one integrated date like this. If I can break it up, right? Probably there was a question on what was the average share price on Fridays. So I need to know which day is the Friday, which of these days are for Fridays. So if I can break the date into these four components, I can do all these date specific calculations. And for that, first we need to understand something about the dates, the date format, right? The date format should be any of the things. You just right click, format cells, you go under the date. Any of these things are valid date formats. You enter the data, you enter the date in any one of these formats, in any one of these models, it is understood in the same way by Excel. So there is no difference between you entering the data in this format versus entering it in this format. Only for printout there is a difference, but for Excel there is no difference. For calculations there is literally no difference, right? And the second important point with respect to dates is, in Excel, date is nothing but a serial number. It's a number. Though there is a NOV in this, it has nothing to do with NOV. It's a number. Right? Earlier when we talked about text versus numbers for counting, anything that is not a pure number, we said it is treated as a text. Count will not give the value for it, only count A will give the values for it. But as far as the dates are concerned, as long as they are in that valid formats, all of them are treated as numbers only. The way that number is treated is 1st Jan 1900 started with 1, 2nd Jan 2, 3rd Jan 3. So by now, probably some 40,000 days have been elapsed right from 1st Jan 1900. So today's date, according to Excel, is some 40,000 odd. The way it stores today's date is not as 9th Jan or whatever, the 17th November 2012. It does not store the date like that. It stores it as 45,233. We can't understand that part. So any format we enter, whether we enter it in this format or we enter it in some other format, this format, it does not matter. Both of them are treated exactly in the same way. Because if you see this, I right click, format cells, go to general. It will show as 40,851. That's the serial number. Excel stores 4th November 2011 as 40,851. In whatever the valid format you are entering, it will be stored as 40,851. That's it. Because we cannot understand 40,851, for presentation purpose we show the formats. Excel understanding is only 40,851. Now you see the next day, it should be 40,000 whatever. There are 4 days I think gap. So this is 40,855. Because 4th November and the next one is 8th November. So 5th November is 852, 6th is 853. So it's like a serial number. So the advantage here is, even if it is a leap year, even if it is having 366 days, 365 days, whatever it is the case, we don't need to worry about it. Excel treats them automatically. So because they are numbers, anything and everything that can be done on numbers, adding, subtracting, multiplications, etc., they can very well be done on dates also. Because date is not anything different as far as Excel is concerned. For all calculation purposes, date is nothing but a simple number. So which means if I want to find the difference between two dates, like countdowns or something, countdown is nothing but the difference between two dates. How many more days for the new year? So it's nothing but the difference between today's date and the new year date. The difference between the two dates is nothing but difference between two numbers, because both dates are numbers. So whenever I want the difference between the two dates in a question, it's always a simple subtraction between two numbers. So because date is nothing but a number, right? Only when you enter it in that valid formats, in that given formats. So how do I understand which of them are valid? Okay, let me show something. Here I am entering 2010-2012, the typical Indian format, versus 10-20-2012 versus 20 October 2012. You are observing the difference? The second and the third ones are by default formatted to the right. We did not do any alignments by default, whereas the first one is formatted to the left, right? Here the default implementation of Excel is anything which is a number is formatted to the right and anything which is a text is formatted to the left. And as per Excel, date is a number, serial number. So whichever are valid dates, by default they will be formatted to the right. So if we see that it is formatted to the right, we can think that it's a date. It's not that now you change the format of this to right, it will become a date by default. Right? So this is nowhere a date. We get the dates from various systems like that. Probably something we may send the date like this. This is also not a valid date. Or probably in this format. Even this is not a valid date. Right? Or this is a valid format. So some of them are valid, whereas some of them are showing to the left, which are not valid Excel date formats. So if they are not valid Excel date format, we cannot apply any date formulas on them unless we translate it into a valid date format. So for that we have to use some text based operations, right? Because it's a text. Though it is for you it may look like a date, but for Excel it is a text. So you have to do some text processing to actually bring out the date out of it, right? So if something is already a valid date, or the other way to check out is you make the format of it to general. You go to format general. In this, if that number, serial number is found, we can say that it's a valid date. But if the text is as it is visible, then it's not a valid date for Excel. So it's a text. Now, as we have seen here, these are all valid Excel dates in whatever format we have entered. Just quickly go and check here. 40,858. Yeah, sometimes the easier way to go to this format cells instead of right clicking on format cells and all that stuff, you can very well do a control 1. Control 1, 1. Will directly open up this box. On any cell you do a control 1, it opens up this box where you can select the values of your choice. Now, because this is a valid date, I can split it into day, month, year and weekday. Okay, so I'll introduce few columns. Oh, sorry. I'll insert few more columns. I'll insert few more columns where I'll call as day, month, year and weekday. These are the 4 names I am using, and these 4 names correspond to 4 formulas in Excel. Day will give me the date. Month will give me the month. Year the year. Weekday will give me the weekday. Of the input given is a date. If I give one date as the input, it will only pull out the date part of it. If I say 15th November 2012, day formula will pull out 15, will show 15 there. Month formula will show 11 November. Year formula will show 2012 of that same output, of that same input. And probably weekday formula will show whatever the day corresponding to that date. So let's try applying them. Equal to day. The input that it requires is serial number. Date is a serial number. Because date is a serial number, give the date as the input. That's it. Give the date as the input. So it gives me 4. Of course, it is giving in a different format. Change the format of it. Control 1. Make it to general. Format is only for our look and feel. The calculation, it has nothing to do with the calculations. How it has to be presented. The 4 is presented as 400% for us. So the presentation is fine. So now I can drag this down, which means I can hold it on this bottom corner and do a simple double click. At least up to here I do it and do a simple double click. So till the last, oh, okay. So till the last, now from month and onwards, if I am doing a double click, because there is a data in the I column without any blanks, I can very well go to the last and I can paste the data. Now the month again is accomplished through equal to month. Again shift F3, the input is only serial number. So again I can give the date as the input. This date, the full date. Then this gives me, okay, again the format wise, I'll change it to, it takes some default formats. Format wise, it is taking it as. So the point here is the month, the output is always a number 1 to 12. It does not write it as November or December, something like that, because different people want to interpret it or write it in their own ways. Some people may prefer NOV, or some people probably if it is an Arabic years, probably 11 means something else, right? So different languages, the interpretation will be different. So as far as Excel goes, it gives only numbers, so that people write it in their own, they translate it into their own text. So the month formula, so you see here corresponding to December. So this is like 1st December 2011. So that's where the date is given as, day is given as 1, month is given as 12. The same way I can apply the year formula. Equal to year, shift F3. Again the input is serial number. So I'll give the date as the input. So the year is given as 2011. Change the format. And drag it down. The year is taken as 2011 and 12. Now the same thing holds with weekday also. I can say equal to weekday. These 4 are like splitting your data into 4, splitting your date into 4 elements. So shift F3, again serial number. The date is what I'll give as input. Return type, I'll come to it. First let's ignore the return type part. The weekday it is showing as 6. Change the format of it, you will get 6. Sometimes by default only it will give 6. Depends on how your sheet is formatted by default, you will get the appropriate numbers. Okay, so now here 6 means, no, it will not display text. I'll tell you why it doesn't display also. See, for us 6 means Friday. Typically 1 is Sunday, 7 is Saturday. So 6 goes with a Friday. Now The reason why it displays only the numbers is again different people want different text. So probably some people want it as Ravivar something. So because someone is having some other language keyboard, they want it more to be written on that way. So from that perspective, for all these calculations, no text is displayed, only the numbers. But the thing is, the number 6 or number 2, whatever it is interpreted as different days by different people, different countries. In India or probably British, the calendar starts from a Sunday and ends with a Saturday. The first day of the week when we say it's a Sunday and it ends with a Saturday. But the typical West, the first day of the week starts with a Monday and seventh day is a Sunday. That's where they coined the term also as weekends. We keep using that. So the week ends on 6th and 7th days of the week. So so from their perspective, when they say first day of the week, it should be Monday. Whereas for us, the first day of the week means Sunday. So if it gives 1, should I need to interpret it as Sunday or a Monday? So for that, it has actually introduced this return type. This return type, what this is doing is, if you want Sunday to Saturday as 7, Sunday as 1 and Saturday is 7, use 1. Monday is 1 to Sunday is 7, use 2. The third one you can ignore because that's the same step. So if Sunday is 1 to Saturday equal to 7, use 1 there, or you can even ignore. So that's where probably for Indians we don't need to bother about the return type. But when you are working for West project, it's better that you write 2 there in the return type, because there 1 means Monday and 7 means Sunday. So here I'll ignore. I don't even write anything. Even either I write 1 or I ignore. Both of them will give me the typical English or a Britain or the Indian format. So the 6 means Friday, 3 means Tuesday, 4 Wednesday, again 6 a Friday. It goes like that. Right? Now, yeah, converting this into a text is good for us. Right? I mean, though if they are looking like 11, 6, 4, 3, 2, probably sometimes it becomes more and more confusing. So probably we can look at converting these numbers into text also. That can be done through some other formulas. We'll use the lookups for that purpose. Right? We'll do that part using a lookup, VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP kind of formulas. We'll try to convert these numbers into text. But for time being, because we are in the date part, it will give me the day, month, year and weekday. Now, look at our questions. Which month registered highest turnover? Right? Okay, let me display all the months. So I'll here typically call it as month and turnover. 1, 2. I can display all the months as a table, because month column anyhow is containing 1 to 12. Right? I'll display all the months 1 to 12. Now I need turnover, total turnover, or probably highest average turnover. Which month registered highest average turnover? So I can use average of the turnovers based on a condition, which means average if I can use. Here I can use average if formula. Sorry? I'm doing with one condition. The month name should be equal to 1. And once I do it for 1, I'll drag it so that it will take up to 12. So I'll use average if. Now let's see what I need to do. the range. What is the shortlisting range I am using? The month column now. Month should be equal to 1 because I am writing this formula corresponding to January month. 1, right? So I'll put in the range, I'll select the month column, which is the J column. Average if formula. The shortlisting is first happening on the month column. So I am selecting the J column. The criteria for me is 1. 1 means instead of typing 1, I'll pull this one. So what it is meaning, from the month column, shortlist all Januaries, right? Shortlist all Januaries, and for the shortlisted data, average of what? Average of turnover. So take the average of turnover is the F column. So what this is saying, first, because we have created a new column now, we can write all our rules on that column. Right? Earlier, if I wanted month-wise, if you remember, we have done it as greater than or equal to this date and less than or equal to this date. If I wanted the sales of the prices or turnover of June 2012, we said greater than or equal to 1st June, less than or equal to 30th June. Rather than that, if I had created one more column which will contain the month number, I can now simply apply average if rule on the top of that. Right? Now this is saying for Jan, the average turnover is 12,779. Now I can drag it down, because if I am dragging it down, all the inputs will increase by 1. Only the row numbers. Dragging it to the right, column numbers will increase by 1. Dragging it down, the row numbers in the input will increase by 1. There is only one row number, O53. So in the next row, it becomes O54. When I drag the formula from this cell to the next cell, the input will become O54, which means it directly takes this. So it gives me the sales, the turnover of February. So drag it up to the last, I'll get the turnover for all the 12 months. That is the advantage of not writing a constant into the formula. Writing it in a cell can actually help me to drag it down. Now in this, probably I can use conditional formatting or something to highlight the highest value. Which month is actually showing the highest turnover. So top 10, instead of 10, I will make it 1. So this says February is the highest turnover month. Probably the bottom 10 also, if I want to, those things you can very well play around. The conditional formatting also plays an important role in this. Right, the moment, so you can, once the data changes, obviously even the calculations here change and everything gets impacted, and even the conditional formatting also changes. But we can clearly see all are in the 12,000 and 14,000 range, whereas this is in the 18,000 range. So probably I can very well interpret. Of course, again, levels of interpretation change. From here, people will do some statistical analysis. They'll do some kind of hypothesis testings on this data. And finally, they say, no, February is a very significant month in terms of turnovers for the market. So they draw some conclusions out of it. Generalized conclusions. So that is a layered wise data analysis. But at least here with the identification of the conditional formatting and all, we can very well say this is the month which is having the highest turnover. So that's how we can use the date functions, use the arithmetic functions along with the date functions and then do our analysis. So which means if we typically understand in this entire stuff, each formula is like a building block. It has some input, it gives some output. Now probably this output can go as input to something else. Now if I see here, first we have created month. We have computed the month using the month formula. So it has given some 1 to 12, some output. That output we are taking as input. We have taken as input into the average if formula. Right? So typically we need to have that kind of comfort level on what is the input of each of the formula, what is the output that comes. Can I integrate the output of this with the input of something else so that it looks as if I'm using two formulas together? And that's how we make the formula lines and lines. Right? Okay, one more thing we'll try, which is this question. Find the average share price of S Bank on Fridays and compare it with the average share price on Mondays. So what are the variables for us? S Bank is a variable. The day, Friday or Monday. Okay. So probably I'll put bank, day, and what is that? Average share price. So bank, in all the cases I'll take it as S Bank only. Day is, I need for Monday it is 2 and probably S Bank. Friday is 6, not day, sorry, weekday. Weekday is 2 means Monday, weekday is 6 means Friday. Now for that I want to find out the average share price, which means there are two rules for me. The symbol should be equal to S Bank and weekday should be equal to 2. If I want the Monday average, if I want the Friday average, I need bank equal to S Bank and weekday equal to 6. Because there are two rules for computing my average, I'll use average ifs. Average ifs. Oh, sorry. Average range. Now, which average I have to take? Turnover average. No, share price average. So probably I'll take the closing price or something. Okay, the D column I'll take, which is the closing share price. Closing price. Now the range, there are two criteria for us. The first one is symbol equal to ICICI Bank. Sorry, S Bank. So I'll not type S Bank here, as we said. We'll go here and select that cell where we have written S Bank, so that we can drag it. So the bank name is S Bank. What is the criteria range to? Weekday. Weekday should be equal to 2. So weekday is my criteria range 2. The value should be equal to 2. I won't even type 2 there. I'll point to this one. So that tomorrow, if instead of S Bank and Monday, someone writes it as HDFC Bank and Wednesday, I'll get the price automatically updated without me bothering about again trying to do the same process. Right? So that's where the bank name as well as the day, and even here, now I'll simply drag this down so that I'll get average share price of S Bank for Friday also. So I'll get it as 335 is the average share price of S Bank on Mondays. All Mondays. So all the Mondays of S Bank are shortlisted from the whole data and their average is taken. And probably if I drag this down a little bit, it's showing 337 on Fridays. Mondays it is 335, Fridays it is 337. So probably not too much of a change. Just around 2 rupees is the average change. Criteria 2, I have put the weekdays column, L column. Criteria range 2 is L column, and criteria 2 is the 2, this 2, which we have written here in the weekday. Yeah, 2, Monday. So within that L column, search for 2's. 2 is a Monday. After that I have dragged it. See, here, once you have written it here, you simply drag it here. Just one sec. Yeah. So these 4 are generally the more common formulas. See, again in the question, probably, yeah, find the average share price of S Bank on Fridays and compare it with the average share price on Mondays. So probably either you can take a difference or something, and you can write the report on that. There is a difference of 2 rupees or whatever, right? Then a few more date related stuff apart from all these formulas, apart from day, month, year and all that stuff. Sometimes I'll give a few more queries. Okay, find the age of the person given his date of birth, right? So probably if we type something as date of birth, now I want the age, right? See, typically age is dynamically changing stuff. With every date, that number has to change. So for today, if it is some x days, for tomorrow it should become x plus 1 days, something like that. So which means the definition of today has to change dynamically. If today, when I say, okay, when I have to write today's value, so probably one way we can write is 17th November 2012. The other way is control colon. It's a shortcut. Even control colon. Even that will give me the date. We don't need to remember 17th November and all. Control colon will give me the today's date. But in both these cases, when I open this Excel file tomorrow, it will still show as 17th November 2012 itself. But I want it to become 18th November 2012 when I open this file tomorrow. Which means I want the date to be changing dynamically in some cases. In some cases, I want it to be static. Whereas, especially for countdown finding, countdown is the difference between today and, let's say, New Year. Tomorrow, when I open the same file, if it still shows the same number of days, then there is no benefit. It has to decrease the number of days by 1. But that can do only when the today is dynamic. The definition of the today, when I move to tomorrow, it should become 18th November 2011. And all calculations should be based on 18th November 2011, not 17th November. In that case, instead of typing in the date, I use a formula for today, which is nothing but today, equal to today, with a simple open and a close bracket. Now, both of them right now are showing the same. Format, you can keep format of your choice. No issues. Right? You can even change it to the same type of presentation format. No issues. Right? You can. So the only difference between these two dates is tomorrow when we open the file, this will show as 17th November only, whereas this will become 18th November. So wherever we want the definition of the today to be more dynamic, we use today as a formula rather than as a value. Right? Now, if I want to find how many days are there between your date of birth and today, which is nothing but difference between 2 days. So days, I can simply get it as the difference between this date minus this date. Just a simple subtraction. Right? Probably not necessary only for birthdays. Right? If I want to find out how many days are there for a new year, one side will be today, one side will be 1st Jan 2013. So 1st Jan 2013 minus today. So depending on if today is getting increased, because these are nothing but serial numbers. So because these are all serial numbers, it simply increments the value for us. Right? If the tomorrow is coming, it's like serial number is increased by 1. So all our calculations will be decreased by 1. Countdowns will keep coming down. So there are 12,499 days between 29th August 1978 to this one. Right? So I can very well use these kind of stuff. Now, sorry? Yeah, because you might have subtracted smaller minus larger. You subtract today's date minus the date of birth. You will get positive. And there are a couple of other things, especially like I want to find out the exact date next month. The applications are like this. In your company, you have a 1 month notice period or 6 month probation period. They will not say 180-day probation period or 30-day notice. In some companies, they talk about 30-day notice, but some companies say 1 month notice. So how is that 1 month calculated? Is it on 30? Is it on 31? What is the date? Right? In typical, wherever month is being used, it's the same date next month or same date n months later. If I say 6 month is the probation period, same days 6 months later. So those kind of applications are there where you have to find out the same date n months later or n months back. Right? And typically even for your loans, EMI payment, same date every month. So whenever I have to generate such kind of stuff, I don't know whether I should add 20 because these are two dates. With a simple plus, we can create one more date because two numbers. If I add plus 30, probably I'll get the next number. Right? 1 month later. But I don't know whether I should add 29 or 30 or 31. I need to know how many days are there in that particular month. Rather than that, if I depend on a formula called E-date, E-date is nothing but exact date n months later or n months back. So if I want exact date next month, same date next month, the date I'll take it as, let's say this date. Months, I'll say 1 month later. If I put 2, it gives me 2 months later. 10, 10 months later. But exactly the same date. It gives me, okay, it is giving in that serial number. Change the format of it. Control 1. Change the format of it to the date 17 December 2012. Right? The moment instead of 1 month later, you say 2 months later. It becomes 17 Jan 2013. We don't need to really bother about that value. The moment we are using e-date as a formula, right? But there are a lot of applications for e-date. Wherever we say, okay, your bond, or probably you have done a fixed deposit. Nowadays, banks are talking of 1 month, 1 year, 16 days, something. But otherwise, typically it is like you deposit for 2 years, 3 years, or probably 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. So what is the calculation of 10 months? Some days have 30, some days have 31, some days have 28, 9. So in all those cases, any month related calculation goes with the same date, the next month or whatever the month we are interested in. So some kind of calculation is required with respect to date like that. And now, okay, again coming back to the age calculation. That when we are talking of a simple subtraction, the age is telling in terms of days. But it's better if I get it in terms of years, months and days. Right? I mean, the age of the person or the difference between the two dates. Age is nothing but difference between two dates. The difference between the two dates, instead of getting in terms of number of days, if it gives me an output in terms of years, months and days, it will be more and more logical. Or it will be more and more, worth enough to look at. But, okay, that particular thing is accomplished through a formula called date diff. But the only problem with this date diff formula is it is not present in the help of Excel. Somewhere it is missed out, both in 2007 and 2010 versions. The formula will work, but it is not given in the help. When I say not given in the help, you will not get it in the drop down after you put equal to. The moment you type D, you will not get it in the drop down. Nor when you press the FX or shift F3, you will get what inputs have to be entered. So it has to be a manually typed in kind of a stuff. What inputs does it require? The first thing, you have to give a start date to it. As a first input, you have to give a start date. As the next input, you have to give an end date. Start date is your birthday. End date is today's date. Then, if I want years, completed years, you have to give a parameter called Y. If you want months after the completed years, right? I mean, the last year, probably, let's say, we are talking of the same 29th August 1978. Completed, the year gets completed on 29th August 2012. After that, I want to find out how many months have elapsed. For that, I have to type YM as the YM is months after the last completed year, latest completed year. And so that month will get completed probably 29th October 2012. Because 29th November it has not yet come. So I have to compute number of days after that. So for that I have to give MD as the input. So these three inputs if I give, one after the other. So it means three formulas. One formula with Y as the input will give me number of years. One formula with YM as the input will give me the months after the last completed year. One formula with MD as the input will give me the days after the last completed month. These three, if they are integrated, that will give me the complete age of the person. So let me start off with that. So years, YM and MD. These three I'll use. So if you see here, I'll have to type it fully like this, equal to date diff with an open bracket. I'll not get any help. Right? The first thing I have to enter is start date. I cannot go into FX box here. I'll have to enter here itself. Start date is the date of birth, comma, end date, which is today's date, comma, I'll have to type in Y in double quotes. If I type in Y in double quotes, you see that it says 34. So 34 years have been completed. Between 29th August 1978 to 17th November 2012, 34 years have been completed. The same thing you do for the remaining two, date diff, start date, comma, end date, comma, YM. 2 months. Because 29th August 2012 was the last completed year. September 29th September 2012, 1 month. 29th October 2012, 2 months. 29th November 2012 is not yet over. So 2 months. Now from 29th October 2012 to today's date, it will calculate the days, which is coming through your MD formula. Start date, comma, M date, comma, MD. In double quotes. So probably this one I have to interpret it as 34 years, 2 months and 18 days old. Now just to test it out, change the date of birth. You'll get it as 3 years, 11 months, 23 days old. 24th November 2008. So 7 more days are there for 24th November. So that's where it is showing 11 months and 23 days. So there is a mechanism to integrate these three also into one single cell. I'll come to that mechanism. Right? Probably instead of showing it in 3 cells like this, probably if somewhere it shows 3 years, 11 months, 23 days old in one single line itself, it looks more and more interesting. Right? So that integration part I'll take up, but because we are looking at date based formulas, so the date of birth can be retrieved using this, the age can very well be retrieved using this date diff kind of a formula, which is not there in a basic implementation of the Excel. Right? It's there in the implementation, but somehow from the help it is missing out. It's yeah. Start date, which is your date of birth. Just one more formula specific to dates is sometimes we may be more interested in not just the difference between the two dates, but more like number of working days between the two dates. Right? I don't want the total number of days. I want only the number of working days, where it should take into account the holidays and all that stuff, Sundays. But the default implementation of 2007 is Saturdays and Sundays both are treated as weekends, holidays. I mean, if that has to be violated, then probably we have to do lot of modification and our own rules for that. By default, the formula, which is called as network days, which will give me the number of net working days between two dates. By default, it takes Saturday and Sunday as holiday. But at least in 2010, this is one change which they have brought in 2010, where you can actually define which days are holidays for you. In 2007, they have explicitly gone with Saturday and Sunday as the holiday. Probably because of some various requests or whatever, they have come out with in 2010 version. They have come out with mechanism of you can specify only Sunday holiday or Sunday Monday holiday. So based on that, the number of working days will be computed, right? So here, okay, let's say net work days, right? Or before that, let me just do new year. I'll just put a new year date, 1st Jan 2013. I'll do a countdown. Countdown is nothing but new year date minus today's date. Simple subtraction. So I'll do it as equal to the 1st Jan 2013 minus today's date, 17th November 2012, which is saying 45 days are there for the new year. I want to find out how many working days are there for the new year, not the total number of days, right? Probably that new year I have to complete something. So how many days are there for me to complete that part? So I'm more interested in number of working days rather than the number of days. So that's where I use this network days formula. Equal to network days will give me the number of net working days between the two dates. Start date, end date. Start date is lesser than the end date, always, just like your date diff formula. So start date is today's date, end date is your new year date. Holidays, let's hold on to it for a minute. So these two, if I am giving, it's directly saying 32 days. The reason being, the remaining days are Saturdays and Sundays. They are already eliminated. Only 32 working days are there between today and 1st Jan 2013. Now, it's just not Saturdays and Sundays. Probably there are some other days which are holidays. Some festivals or something, or you have your own leave plans, something. In that case, you can define the list of holidays. Probably I'll say holidays. You give all the dates when the holidays are there. It could be backdated, future dates. Probably if you have the calendar somewhere, you just copy and paste. You don't need to worry that I have to put between 17th November and 1st Jan what are the holidays. You don't need to bother about that. You just put a list. Like probably 1st Jan 2012 is a holiday. Was a holiday. Right? 26th Jan 2012 was a holiday. Right, probably 15th August 2012 was a holiday. I'm just typing in some old dates. Right, or probably 26th Jan. It need not be in an order also. 2013 is a holiday. 25th December 2012 is a holiday. And if required, let's put one or two. Let's say these are the holidays. We can keep adding. So to make myself adding, I'll probably select, okay, in this place you enter your holidays. Right? Now what I'll do is, I'll go into this network days, edit the formula because I did not use holidays earlier. So I'll come to this holidays, probably whatever extent, because I can extend this list also without changing the formula. So that's where I'm selecting something more. So now it makes that number of working days is 31 only. The reason being, these are all out of the limit. They are not lying between today and 1st Jan 2013. So that's where it is reduced the number of working days by only by one, because this is the only day which is a working day and it's a holiday. But you give one more date, let's say tomorrow's date. 18th November 2012 as a holiday, it does not reduce your number of days. Because it has already reduced it as a part of weekend. Right? It's a Saturday, Sunday. So it has already reduced it as a part of Sunday. So it doesn't reduce. So that's the kind of complex logic it is using in this formula. Now otherwise you enter the same date twice. 25th December 2012. It does not reduce. If there is a duplicate entry, it does not bother. So you really don't need to bother about what data is there. It could be a future date, it could be a past date. It only checks for the dates which are lying between the start date and the end date and which are not counted as a part of weekends. Only by that many days your number of working days are reduced. So that way it's more powerful typically to find out, okay, how many man hours are still left. Am I on schedule or am I going behind schedule? Right? Because probably it may look like 100 days or 100 hours of effort is still required. Right? Probably calendar days wise there are 15 or 16. Looks comfortable. 15 hours, 15 days, 8 hours a week, 8 hours a day, 120 hours is there, so I can still accomplish my task. But probably with four holidays in middle, the number of working days is coming only to 9, 11 or 10. Even if I work for 8 hours a day, the work is not going to be completed. So I can plan out, probably I need some overtime efforts or something like that. So, in some kind of cases, getting the number of working days is more important than getting the total number of days between the two dates. Right? In those cases, this formula is very much helpful. So, the date formulas, because a lot of places we work on dates. Sales people work on their daily running sales data. Right? Stock market people work on the stock prices which are running on a daily basis. Recruitments, again there is a date associated. So almost background agnostically people work on date based analysis, right? On what days typically the trading is more, on what days typically I'm getting sales more. Probably a sales guy will be interested on which is the better period for sales. Is it the beginning of the month or the end of the month, or in which period I'm generating how much percentage of sales, right? Which days are coming out to be best day. Right? Earlier we have done just for when I was analyzing the data of one of the training companies. They were actually planning out on which day has to be given as weekly off for their telecalling guys or cash collection guys. Right? One of the biggest training institutes here for entrance exam. So they were thinking on what days are better days to be given as holidays for their because they work especially on Saturdays and Sundays, they get big crowd. So they are planning out which day should be a weekly off for those people. So for that I started analyzing the data and I could really make out that Fridays and Tuesdays were the days with the least collections, with a significant difference. Probably because of various sentiments of people or whatever, I'm not sure of it. But at least the data really gave, the more we dug out on the data using some kind of these kind of techniques itself, we could really make out that Tuesdays and Fridays are the days where the number of walk-ins are lesser, number of payments are lesser. So probably we can give offs to good number of people on these 2 days. So sometimes what happens is the more and more we dig the data, we don't know in what case which kind of, if I look at it theoretically, I may not know. I may still think no, you are required to work on all the 7 days. Right? Anytime any walk-in can come and anytime any payment may come. But until I dig through the data, probably last 2 years collections or something like that, then I can clearly analyze, oh, is the pattern really the same across or is there some kind of pattern? Now here also, the stock price, Monday versus Friday for S Bank, we did not see much of a difference. But let's see, is it the same for all the other banks? HDFC Bank also more or less looking the same, only 2 rupees difference on both the days, right? But probably for some other bank, if it is very wide, again here also looking more or less the same. So probably we can very well say, now we can very well conclude, probably the Friday's price is always 2-3 rupees more than the Monday's price on an average, right? So probably I can give some kind of strategy to my investors. You think of buying on Mondays but selling it always on Fridays. If no other day is generating more than this, we did not test out. Probably if I test out Wednesday, Wednesday is looking much more higher, right? So some kind of detailed analysis when we get in, we don't know. Sometimes data will reveal some kind of weird facts which we may not pull out theoretically, which we may not correlate conceptually, but data wise we may find that that is the observation. So in those cases, processing the dates for various formulas will really add value to our analysis, and these are the kind of different formulas that are existing in Excel from the processing of a date standpoint. Fine.